welcome to my channel. Today I've got a lovely guest today. So we've got Sian from Helpful Mum. I'll pop her link in down here, and we're going to talk today about pregnancy and maternity discrimination, because Sian has faced it before and she's come out that she won. She took him to court and she won. So I wanted to talk to Sian a little bit about her story and get some tips from her about what you should do if you're in the same kind of situation. So Sian, will you tell? I feel like
I've been interviewed.
Who's in it? Like Graham Norton, but like less camp.
Yeah,
maybe?
excellent.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what happened in your story.
So I was working for this company, and I hadn't been there very long. I'd only been there about 5 months. So I was just kind of within like the point of being able to get pregnancy leave and stuff. But I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't like a planned pregnancy, but it was a very happy pregnancy. And then quite early on, sort of 8 weeks-ish, I lost the baby and I was devastated. And obviously, you know, I had to tell them, I hadn't told them I was pregnant, but I had to tell them that I was having a miscarriage and I needed time off work. And I think I took the doctor gave me 10 days off, but I took a week because I felt, when I'd spoken to my boss, it sounded a bit different, and I felt like they needed or expected me back sooner. So I went back, but when I went back, the atmosphere had changed. So before that, it had been really friendly, really nice, and when I went back, it was just different. And one of the bosses, like the top bosses, just stopped talking to me, and I wasn't worried about it. But then literally a week after I'd been back, I was given like a formal warning for my behaviour at work, and I hadn't changed anything. They'd always been happy with my work, so I went into a meeting with my kind of line manager, and he said, "Oh, don't worry about it, it's nothing, we're perfectly happy with your work." Kind of poo-pooed it basically, and I was just like, okay, well, you know, why has it happened then? And he didn't really elaborate, but he really put my mind at ease, so I just chilled out. But at that point I started writing a diary because I felt
that's a smart thing to do.
Not quite right, but I was studying law, so I was studying like a law A level.
That is definitely a tip. If you're facing any kind of discrimination at work, keep a log.
Yeah.
Dates, times, what's happening, any evidence you can, save it, because that's really important.
The diary was a really good kind of backup as well, because you forget how you felt at a certain time, or words that were spoken to you, or
and sometimes microaggressions you kind of let go at the time. You're like, oh, that's not a big deal, but it's more the bigger picture when you look at it as a whole, where you're like, actually, that's harassment.
Yeah, and it was the way it made me feel, so that was kind of important.
Which is important,
that I wrote it down.
It's important under the Equality Act, the 2010 Equality Act, how it makes other people feel is important.
So about not that much later, they basically just fired me and told me to get my stuff and leave, and they hadn't actually followed the correct procedure. Obviously I knew they hadn't, in terms of firing me. I hadn't had a final warning. They hadn't kind of done what they should have done, but they made up all sorts of stuff about me, that I hadn't worked and all this stuff that was just untrue. And then it was kind of, I obviously wanted to come back and say, you know, you can't just fire me, because firing looks bad on me. They weren't going to give me a reference in my next job. But also I'd been really happy there, and I was so upset that they were kind of treating me like that. But my other top tip is that if you were thinking about going through with any kind of tribunal, it was a tip my solicitor gave me, because I went to the solicitor and said, look, this is what's happened, do I have a case? And he said, yes, but first, before I talk to you again, go and check your home insurance to see if you've got legal cover, which I did. So my home insurance covered all my legal fees.
Oh, I would never have guessed that. I wouldn't have thought to look there.
I wouldn't either.
I would have thought it would have been under kind of like if you were with a union or something like that, but your home insurance.
But my home insurance paid for it, so they covered all my costs.
It's actually not bad advice to, if you're a woman particularly, to get home insurance that does, because
I've always had it since. I've always made sure.
What percent is it now? I'm sure I saw the percent the other day. I think it's either 60% or 40%. It's quite a difference there, but there is, you know, would like to think that lots of women don't face it, but I mean, I've definitely faced discrimination when I've been pregnant or breastfeeding. You have, you know, you can speak to most people and they have. And I think what you're talking about as well is a particularly vulnerable area for women, because once you tell your employer that you're pregnant, you're protected under the law while you're pregnant. But if you've had a miscarriage, and you aren't pregnant anymore,
Yeah.
they know that you're going to get pregnant at some point, but you're in that grey area. You're not pregnant, so they can get rid of you.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
and
they do.
And it was brutal. I mean, I appealed the first thing I did was appeal my dismissal, and we went to a tribunal at the company, and it was horrific. And they made up all this stuff about me. They made up lies that they hadn't advertised the post. They'd just employed me because I was a temp and I was doing an okay job, but they had advertised the post, and we had the proof because it was in the paper. And they'd interviewed more people than just me. There were other people interviewed, so they kind of lied from the out. And so it was really, I mean, for me that was great because it worked in my favour. But they kind of went with some really horrible tactics. So they did phone interviews with all the employees about me, but they didn't tell the employees that they were doing a phone interview. So I rang my friend and I said, look, I've got this witness statement from you that says it's from you, and she said I didn't say any of that. So I had her, she'd kind of signed, this is nothing, I haven't said any of this. So I had her back up as well to say they're lying.
It's so difficult as well because you're obviously smart, and you mentioned to me you were studying law at the time, so, and you're a confident person. If you're somebody who's maybe a bit more introverted and you don't have that experience, it's an impossible situation to be in because they have all the power. You're saying, like, you spoke to your friend and she provided you that statement, but if those people are still working at the company and they don't want to risk their jobs, you know, they might not. The company has all of the control. It's an impossible situation to be in.
It was, and it was a horrible situation. It was genuinely one of like the darkest times of my life because every email I got from them was something with a new accusation, and
that's just personal for you. Yeah. For them, it's not personal because they're the company, but for you, it's a personal attack.
Yeah, and they had a really massive law firm, and you know they could afford to get this big law firm, and I had like my local solicitor who was brilliant. But
it must feel awesome that you won then.
Yeah, it felt amazing.
David and Goliath.
But they had no evidence to kind of, you know, they really had no evidence. So I got a settlement, and I was just glad that it was over. And all I wanted was for them to never treat another woman in that way.
Isn't it? You know.
I mean, they probably never employed another woman, but I just didn't want. I also wanted them to see that I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to just go, okay, yeah, whatever, you know. Because they offered me all kinds of settlements. Yeah. And I was just like, no.
I think you've done the right thing, and I think it is important, especially if you're able to stand up, because you know, it's difficult. Not everybody feels like they can.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you can, then you kind of owe it to yourself and to other women to do that, to fight on their behalf.
You need to have, I think you find a strength you didn't know you had, but you need to have strength in the first place. It nearly broke me with that whole, and it was a good like year of my life because it dragged on and on and on with more evidence and all this kind of stuff. So it was really, really tough, and obviously having had a miscarriage before that as well.
You've got that whole physical and emotional stuff that you're going through to do with your pregnancy, or you know, you might have other children, you know, all of this kind of stuff, you know. And a lot of the stuff, like I've been advocating breastfeeding things before at work, and you feel it's personal to you. You have to talk about things that are very, very personal and try and advocate. I'm just trying to support a friend. I've literally just got a text from her there, and she's trying to negotiate things in her workplace. She wants to go flexible after having her baby, and they've refused her, and she's saying she doesn't think she can breastfeed anymore. And it's the same, like, friends everywhere are going through the same kind of thing. And you know, if you're quite a shy person, or you know, you like to keep things private, going and saying, oh well, I've had a miscarriage, or I need to go breastfeed, and trying to negotiate that is emotionally exhausting.
Yeah, and I think it's almost harder to say that stuff because it is specific to women. So you know that if you were a man, you wouldn't be in that position. Yeah. And I guess that was kind of just hard for me because obviously my husband, you know, it affected him. He was very sad, but it wasn't like a personal thing. He didn't feel it. It was, you know, it was just difficult from that point of view. And obviously then he supported me in the shit that was the next year. Yeah. But we got through it, and I'm glad we did. But you do need to be prepared for it to be really horrid, because they're going to say stuff about you that's not necessarily true, and you just have to know that it wasn't you. Because I actually looked back over my emails the other day, and I still had the folder from all of the correspondence, and I couldn't bring myself to read it because I
Yeah.
was just like, you know, I didn't need to read it, but I just couldn't because of the lies they made up. It's just,
How do you think you would have felt if you hadn't been successful? Would you still have been pleased that you'd tried?
yeah,
Because I know for some people they might be saying, well, there's costs involved, or, you know, like, I don't know if I want to put myself through that.
I think for me it was never about winning. It was about teaching them a lesson,
Mhm.
not to do it again. And like I say, they probably didn't employ any females after that, but I wanted them to know that I was not backing down. I think it was just, I've just reached a point in my life where it's just like, I've had enough of this and
Yeah.
I'm not doing it anymore.
Well, I think one thing you can say, well, they won't employ any more women, but at least gender pay gap reporting is
Yeah.
coming out next May, is it? Or is it? It's next year sometime. So companies, larger companies now have to report on how many women they have,
Yeah.
what their pay is, what their bonuses is like, and I think that's going to throw up a few revelations. So I do feel like hopefully we'll get there eventually, but
One
it's
day.
a minefield, isn't
It
it?
is, absolutely. And I think it's so easy, because I think also the laws changed since I took this company to court, because it was a long time ago, it's before I had children, so sort of 10 years at least now. So I think it is harder to take a company to court now, but especially if you've got the home insurance, go for it, because as long as you've got the funding, you don't need to worry about that part of it, and you can just kind of go for it.
Have you got any other tips for women who might want to take it forward?
Do all the research you can, make sure you know which law they've broken, you know, which, because for me they'd kind of done two in that they hadn't dismissed me properly, so the dismissal procedure was just rubbish, but obviously they'd also dismissed me because I was pregnant, but that was quite hard to prove because,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of knowing which way to go down, or just have a really good relationship with the solicitor, make sure they understand you, make sure they know kind of what your limitations are and what you can deal with, because they can take some of that away from you. They don't have to send you everything. And I had a good barrister as well, so it was,
And obviously evidence and everything.
yeah, I mean
It's
the
crucial.
diary really helped. That was one of the main things that kind of, and I'm so glad I wrote it, even though it's painful to like look back on. It was definitely something that helped. So it's just making sure you've got evidence of everything, so even if you had like an appraisal that was really good 2 weeks before or something, and then all of a sudden you're getting formal warnings, it kind of doesn't.
That's the thing as well, because it's, you know, sometimes you think, yeah, keep a record of all the good stuff,
Yeah.
all the bad stuff, but the good stuff is equally important, isn't
Yeah,
it?
because then it shows there's a change, and there's not necessarily a change in the way you've behaved. So yeah, one of the things they objected to was that I worked on my law A level during lunch breaks. It was just like, okay, so clearly I
if
was
you're
meant to work at my desk.
If you're clocked
during-
out, then you're clocked
Exactly.
out, you know.
So it was just, it was just disappointing ultimately that a company could change so quickly and could be so aggressive in such an emotional time of my life, and such a time that was a really hard time anyway, without all of that on top.
Was it mostly men involved in the decisions, or was there women?
There,
involved as
yeah,
well?
there was only one other woman who worked in the company, and she was my friend. She was pregnant, which made it quite hard for me. But I think because they knew she was pregnant, then they would then have to pay my maternity if I was going off too.
Yeah.
But she didn't go back to them after what had happened to me, so she didn't go back after maternity leave.
Sounds like that was a smart move.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad I'm out of there. It wasn't a fun place to be. Once it changed.
Well, let's hope that not only your case has helped other women, but that this vlog does as well, and that some people can take your tips and apply it to their own lives. So thank you very much for sharing.
You're welcome.
And we will see you next time. Give this a like. Don't give it a thumbs down. I'll find you. And we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.